Let's take a moment to talk about these tragedies because they happen all the time, and we're missing a key fact here from an old shooting. Okay, now, so what we have here is this article here on a result to a lawsuit that followed a unfortunate incident with weapons in Broward County, Florida in 2018. The judge says that law enforcement officers are not legally obligated to protect students. Cops aren't responsible to protect you at all. If you go back and listen to 20 years ago Dick Wolf's introduction to his Law and Order series, you will see that it says that this is the stories of the police officers who investigate crimes and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. Nowhere in there is there any mention of protecting the public. It's about going after people after the crime has occurred. In 2015, I was mugged on the way home from the grocery store one night. A young man, his description doesn't matter, hit me in the back of the head with a floor tile, took my backpack, and absconded. The police never caught him. Among the things that he stole in my backpack was 100 rounds of 357 Magnum ammunition. And when the police officers here in Las Vegas discovered that I owned a 357 Magnum, they asked me why I didn't just kill him. And I told them that shooting a kid over a matter of $80 was just as stupid now as it was in the movie Back to the Future. You see, he stole a backpack, he stole 2 boxes of ammunition, and he stole some groceries. And killing a person over that amount of stuff just seems way over the top. So, here's the problem: the police aren't obligated to do anything unless you give them enough information to do something. The cops told me next time you get mugged, just kill the guy. And I wish I had a recording of that. I wish I had evidence of that to show you, but I was told next time just kill him because with the 357 Magnum you can. Cops know that they're not obligated to intercede. Now, we as the public assume that the amount of money that we pay them is so that they will put themselves in harm's way. But they don't have to do anything that will put them into a particular amount of trouble. We memorialize, and rightly so, those who do run into a burning building, so to speak, and go and rescue those who cannot defend themselves. But cops are not actually legally responsible if they don't intervene, as the Washington Post is clear to show us. Tossed out a lawsuit filed by the students who said they were traumatized and the school officials should have done more to protect them. Now we have another incident like this in Texas where the questions are being asked, why wasn't more done to protect the students? Well, according to the court precedent, there's no obligation for them to do anything whatsoever. Now, I think that leaving doors unlocked is stupid. I think the cops chasing an armed person into a school zone is stupid. I think this is the culmination of a whole series of unfortunate events that bring it to light. Years ago, when the first one of these events made national news during President Obama's time in office, we were all dragged in through a series to train ourselves in the case that someone with this particular kind of weapon came on campus. And basically, the training amounted to lock the door and hope they don't have blasters, to quote Star Wars. Duck and cover and hope you don't get hit. And one of the police officers here at the time, he's not here anymore, asked me specifically because he knows I work in chemistry to please not throw any Molotov cocktails into the hallway because he knows that I can probably make those. I told him I don't need to do that. I have nitric acid. And so when I brief students at the beginning of the semester and I talk about this particular type of threat, I tell them, number one, I'm locking the doors once class starts for your protection. It's not to lock the people out who are late, because if they have a reason to be here, we just push the door and let them in. It's to buy us time in case they come to protect you. And the chemistry lab is the best place, I think, on campus to hide because there are so many doors out of there that unless he knows where they're going, I can get my students safely out of the building and away from this particular type of incident. Plus, I tell them there are 3 jars of nitric acid at the front of the lab. If there is this kind of an incident, I will give them my fob, tell them what door to exit through, how to get out of the building, and I will throw nitric acid bombs into the hallway until the stench is so great that it burns his nose and he goes elsewhere. Or if I hurt him, because in the end, you're responsible for your own safety. If you look back at old Western movies, those movies are frequently criticized for the ease of use of weapons to defend people. A lot of Clint Eastwood movies involve him arriving in a community and helping the bedraggled community members who are either unable or unwilling to protect themselves, because he's casting himself as the kind of person who's going to go take those risks. If you do pull the trigger, you may kill two people, the person that you hit and the person you used to be. And so his character rightly warns people against that particular decision. In the end, though, you don't have to do that to protect yourself. Many of these people will back down if you stand up to them, and we have to stand up to them. We don't stand up to people who are owning these particular types of weapons and go against everyone who has one. Because if you go to the UK, you can't get one of these, but there's a ton of knife and hatchet attacks there because that's something that you can buy. And before these particular weapons were created, there was murder and there was pillaging and there was risk. Anywhere you go, look up dagger, dirk, dirge. These are all weapons that people used to use to kill each other. We've just made it more economical to do so and given people access to weapons who previously were unable to afford them. That's really all that we've done here. But if you think about it, these particular types of weapons cost the same today as a sword would have about 1,000 years ago. So is it really all that affordable? It's accessible, and that's what they're going to make the basis on. The simple fact of the matter, though, here is that the police were not derelict in one way or another. The police, according to the courts that the liberals love, are not obligated to do anything whatsoever to protect you. Many of them will, but you don't. You see, they don't have to, and some of them are not going to. And because you're not protecting students against someone who works for the state, they're not obligated to step in. I've seen this myself. It's an unrelated issue, but the state is not responsible, and police officers are an arm of the state, to protect you from things that are not the state's responsibility. If, for example, a state vehicle T-bones you, the state is responsible because that was a state vehicle. Unless, of course, the state has leased the vehicle, in which case the company from which they leased it is responsible. And so in this case, an outside party, the state has no liability. It's bizarre. I don't agree with it, but that's how it's written. Because remember, most politicians are also lawyers. And the lawyer's job is to get you off on a technicality. The technicality here is that police are only obligated to do what police choose to obligate themselves to do. This is why, as with all other levels, of public service, we need to choose police officers and encourage people to become police officers who are the kind of people who will put their own needs second in order to serve those whom they are supposed to be serving. I once told the former dean of the institution where I work that it is students who are the most important, because without them, let's see, they can survive without us, but we cannot survive without them. If students stop enrolling, they'll have to cut back on staff, faculty, facilities, and eventually, if they stop coming long enough, the school will die. But those people will still be here. They just will not be college educated. So remember that government exists for you, and that government will try and find a way to excuse itself from doing the work that it's required to do anytime it possibly can. The real issue in this particular tragedy is the cops are not obligated to do anything. So even if they were there, even if they hadn't mucked it up, that still does not mean any of the officers would have actually done more, or could have done more, or should have done more, or what have you, because they're not legally obligated to. In the end, you're responsible for your own safety. You're the one who has to look both ways before you cross the street. You're the one who has to decide where you invest your money. You're the one who has to decide what foods to put in your mouth, how much exercise to get to take care of your own health and well-being. Cops can't do that for you, and no one would argue that a cop has those responsibilities. And I think that's the argument they're making here, is ultimately you're responsible to look out for yourself, and if you're not doing it, they're not required to whatsoever. So we have a series of unfortunate events, and I feel bad for the victims. It is, however, not an opportunity to slander the police or libel them, or to slander and libel the millions of American citizens who own weapons because they feel the desire to have the ability to protect themselves. We have a right to keep and bear arms for this reason, because they understood that, especially if you're under the reign of a tyrannical monarch or a despot of any kind, They may feel absolutely zero obligation to come and protect you, especially if they're the reason why you're beset in the first place. Do everything you can to shore up yourself. Get some food storage, put away some water, get some money saved for a rainy day. There will always be dark times upon us because there will always be at least some people on this planet who will desire and design evil against the rest. And as the population increases, exponentially it seems, we will find more and more these kind of people who are looking for ways to make you as miserable as they are. Make good decisions, watch your back, be circumspect, trust but verify. These are more than cliches, these are words by which to live. Godspeed, and may you live long and prosper.